Romulus has now officially been released in theaters, and with the latest Alien movie being here, it is time to go into full spoilers. So that's exactly what I'll be doing here for you guys. I'll be giving you my spoiler review for Alien Romulus, giving you my full movie reaction, telling you some of the Easter eggs I found really fascinating, things I loved about this movie, and some of the very few things I disliked about it, even discussing the sequel potential about where they could take this and if we even want that. But I don't just want it to be about my opinion, although I know I am the perfect organism. You Alien fans have now gotten the chance to see the movie. I thought this was a slam dunk of a film, but I am seeing actually a lot of divide. There is a good chunk of people that walked out of this movie super disappointed and thought it was awful. And for those people, you're happy to also let your opinion be heard, because I'm curious. Alright, but with that out of the way, let's just go ahead and jump into Alien Romulus. So, like I said, my point of view, I walked out loving this movie. I had a fantastic blast of a time. I'm a big fan of the Alien franchise. I basically love all the previous movies that have come before, minus one. My editor is still currently working on my review of the entire series, but it is coming soon. But for me, the thing that had me the most excited was Fede Alvarez being attached and knowing that he was going to inject his love of horror into Alien, which is something I really wanted back into the franchise. But one thing I wasn't expecting him to do that turned out to be a pleasant surprise for me, but a negative for others, is how this movie was a mishmash of all the elements from previous Alien films all in one movie, making this a giant love letter and celebration of the entire franchise. And well, I guess we're not allowed to love and celebrate the franchise. But some things did maybe take it a bit too far, and we'll get to those criticisms. Starting from the beginning of the movie, it opens up with the wreckage of the Nostromo. This is the ship from the first Alien film that Ripley exploded. We knew this movie was taking place between the first Alien and Aliens. And yeah, it takes place 20 years after the first Alien movie, where the Weyland Corporation were trying to find the original xenomorph going after Ripley that fans call Big Chat, and that's exactly what they got. NECA toys really show you what he looked like, kind of cocooned in this asteroid, and just immediately from this shot when they're getting in the asteroid and they're lasering it open and showing you the fossilization of this xenomorph, oh, I was like, this movie looks gorgeous. That's one of the biggest highlights for me, is I thought this was one of the best looking Alien films. I love the cinematography and the dark moody tones that Fede Alvarez injected into this movie. But after that opening and explanation now to how we'll get some xenomorph action, we meet our main character, played by Cailee Spaeny, Rain. And well, she's just a regular worker on this mining planet where they don't get any sunlight. It's just constantly filled with smoke, terrible work conditions, and they've just been born into this life of the Weyland Corporation where they're forced to work so many hours. Like, I just thought that was kind of crazy. It's that continuous thing that the Alien franchise does, is showing you how evil the Weyland Company is. But I love when we get moments on planets and we see kind of the grand scale of the Alien universe. And yeah, this was a very crowded, nasty place to live in. And also from the opening, there's a lot of Easter eggs that were already caught if you were a longtime fan. There's the bar sign that shows up in Aliens. When Rain and her android brother Andy are sitting down to eat, we get to see the little water bird that shows up in a bunch of different Alien properties, down to the video game. And heck, even on that point, Fede Alvarez was a big fan of Alien Isolation and had a lot of Easter eggs to the video game. There was emergency check marks from the game that he implemented into scenes all over the space station. And in the games, those are like checkpoints, so you know you're about to go up against something that might kill you. And he said in the movie, you see that when something is about to go down. They brought back the Reebok shoes. I know Ripley had a version of them in Aliens, and then they have an upgraded version that Cailee Spaeny wears throughout the movie. And Reebok is going to sell them August 27th. I'm going to buy a pair so nobody else get them. And honestly, you could just kind of go on with all the little Easter eggs and connections to the other movies. I'm just going to stick now to the bigger ones, but those were some of my favorite ones that I caught. But once Rain gets told that she has to stay working on this mining planet for another 5 years, although she finished her contract, this is then where she meets together with her group of younger friends who now discovered there is a ship up above the planet that contains a couple of cryo chambers. With these chambers, they'd be able now to make the 9-year trip to Yavarga, which is supposed to be an independent planet aside from the Weyland Corporation, where they can actually see the sun and live a happy life. And these group of characters need Rain and her brother Andy, who's an android, because he speaks mother, the AI on the ship, and it'll help them navigate inside. Okay, for one, I like this simple plot. While you could definitely argue the last two Alien movies, Prometheus Prometheus and Covenant had much grander, bigger ideas and more thematic elements, I don't mind going back to the roots. That's one of the things I loved about Prey. It went back to basics and stopped trying to make Predator this like big giant action film, and Prey turned out to be awesome. So that's exactly what I wanted from Alien Romulus, is kind of back to basics, going into that horror route, and so I was happy where this was going. So now getting on to like focusing a little bit on these characters. I'll start off with the ones that obviously don't matter that much or are a little bit bland. Starting off with the first person who gets killed here, Navarro. There's not really much to say, although I did like the scene they gave her with the X-ray and the chest burster coming out. You can never understate a good chest burster scene, and I thought that was one of them. Bjorn, the character who we all know from the trailer, saying, "There's something in the water. Oh, there's something in the water."
There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know, there's just something in the fucking water.
A lot of people would comment how annoying that was in the trailers, but little did we know how annoying he'd be in the movie. He was probably my least favorite character, but they did give him an interesting backstory. So the whole movie, he's kind of a dick to the android Andy in this movie, but that's because we find out his mother died at the hands of one of them because she was working in the mines and it was about to collapse, and an android made the choice to close them in because it would save the life of a dozen other workers but kill 3 in the process, including his mom. So because of this, he hates androids. And you know what? I thought that was a decent backstory. That did actually justify why he was being a dick. And there was a part of me that even got a little bit more sympathetic towards him once I found out he was the father to Isabela Merced's character of Kay, and he was gonna have a baby with her. And there is a part in the movie where you see him kind of being protective of her and wanting to save her from this alien that is being formed in the ship and has the cocoon. Really awesome practical effects. Like, again, I talked about how beautiful this movie is, but looking at the behind the scenes of people in actual xenomorph suits, the animatronics they made, oh, it really paid off on screen because those xenomorphs looked awesome. And yeah, his death, although stupid because he's a stupid character who decided to like shock a xenomorph while it was in its egg and then just stay there staring at it when he should be leaving. He gets a xenomorph tail to the face and then ends up dying through acid blood, which I did think that was kind of cool. I wish they would let us breathe into those more gruesome moments a little bit. Fede Alvarez is known for being kind of grotesque in his movies, and there were times in here where I felt it was a little bit tamed on the blood. I wonder if that's a Disney thing because it was going to theaters or a studio decision, but I still thought it was pretty horrific when you're like looking at his hands and then the bones are coming out from the acid blood. And it also kind of led to a cool looking xenomorph. They call it the scorched xenomorph. Getting on now to kind of like the better characters, I'll start off with Tyler, although I'll admit his character's pretty bland and there's not much for him to do, which is why I didn't feel that bad when he ended up dying later on in the movie through a sacrifice. I do think they gave him a super heart-wrenching scene when he's just locked away trying to save his sister, but Andy the android, who he was actually nice to and was good to throughout the whole movie, did not want to help him, and he's just on his knees begging him.
Andy, open the door.
What are you doing? Andy, open the door.
It's all right, I'm gonna get you out.
Dude, I felt that. I thought that was a really great scene. So with that, let's talk about the real MVP of this movie, David Jonsson as the android Andy. Ooh, so it was very easy to sympathize with this android. His backstory is that Rain's father built him. I guess he found him and then fixed him up, and ever since then it's been taking care of Rain. He even added in dad jokes into his programming, which I thought was a charming little thing. But at the end of the day, he's supposed to be like one of the bottom tier androids just there for mining safety. So he's a little glitchy, not all that useful. And yeah, it's easy to sympathize him when he like is really cowardly throughout most of the movie. But I love the switch up they made where later on in the film he gets some updated programming and he's, I would say, more put together. He doesn't exactly get smarter, but his entire character changes from like a wimp, unhelpful person to then ending up working for the Whaling Corporation and making some really difficult decisions where he was forced to like protect Rain, but also do what's best for the company and all that. Like, to me, it was just a fascinating, fun part of the movie. It's the thing I kind of love about the Alien franchise is sometimes the androids steal the spotlight, and I very much felt that here with David Jonsson. So really, Andy the android was probably my favorite character of this entire movie. But now with me glazing it, let's get on to some of the criticisms and things other people are saying that some stuff I do agree with. Okay, so yes, Alien Romulus is just a Frankenstein of all the previous Alien movies that came before. It mostly sticks to the structure of Alien and Aliens, but they pull elements from even Alien 3, Resurrection, and the prequels. I mentioned that stuff didn't necessarily bother me because I knew this was a reset of the Alien universe, trying to jump people back into it now that Disney owns the property and they obviously want to make more sequels. So creating having one movie that has all those elements and actually worked in a coherent story, I thought was an achievement. But where it did go too far at times, where I do agree with some people, is just the overuse of repeating lines from the other movies. That was a big thing that happened in here.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
The one I am 50-50 on is they bring back the line,
"Get away from her, you bitch!"
I get why that's annoying, because that line hasn't even happened canonically in the franchise since this movie takes place before Aliens, and nowhere in the movie does Andy even curse or seem to like learn that word, so it does feel a little out of character, and he does say it awkwardly, which I think was for comedic effect. But at the same time, I've seen the movie twice now. Both times my audience clapped and loved that moment. It was kind of like the "I'll be back" for the Alien franchise, and this is like the only time in the series ever that they have brought it back in this way. Speaking on the Terminator franchise, to me, that's a series where going back to nostalgia memories is so played out, because after Terminator 2, every sequel after that continues to just go back and be unoriginal, pulling from Terminator 1 and 2, not really trying something new. And to me, Alien Romulus was kind of like the first movie wanting to celebrate everything that came before. If we had another movie where it also just copied the formula of other films and was doing this Easter egg nostalgia thing again, I would be right on board with you guys and super annoyed. But since this was kind of the first time and I felt it wasn't that in your face, a lot of people are treating this movie like it's some sort of Marvel film that has the fan service right in your face, when I felt it was really subtle fan service. But the one time I felt the fan service didn't work all that great was when we get to the reveal of the other synthetic android in this movie, the return of Ash, or what they call him now in this movie, Roke, where they use CGI to bring back to life an actor who is now dead in real life and make him an integral part of this movie. I didn't mention him in my spoiler-free review because I felt like there was no way to talk about that without just spoiling it. So now here in spoilers, I definitely want to get into how that really soured a little bit of Alien Romulus for me. Didn't completely ruin the film like I've seen for other people. Like that right there made some people just hate the movie. And I totally get it. It is gross to have an actor that is dead and then you bring him back mainly for nostalgic purposes. That's where I do agree where they maybe went too far. There were rumors that they use AI to recreate the voice, but if you go on IMDb, they got an actual voice actor to recreate Ian Holmes' voice. And even the director, Fede Alvarez, dropped an interview where he does confirm he consulted Ian Holmes' family, got their permission, and no AI was used whatsoever to bring this to life. It was an animatronic and CGI, which I do also want to say the CGI was terrible. Everything else effects-wise about this movie works so well, and then you just have that CGI face that looked awful. But nevertheless, it's just like, man, why did they do that? There are so many other androids in the Alien universe they could have used that would have made just as much sense. I get he ends up becoming kind of evil in the movie, and so they're like, oh, let's just go back to the first evil android, which is Ash, and just throw him into this movie. But you could have used Bishop, or what I honestly would have preferred, Michael Fassbender. It doesn't have to be David from Prometheus and Covenant. It could just be a copy of that model. And honestly, I felt like that would have worked so much better. One, because we already associate that version of a synthetic with an evil person, and two, we end up getting the major reveal that this android was trying to protect the liquid goo from Prometheus and Covenant, tying in the prequels. I love that. I was not expecting them to tie Prometheus and Covenant into this universe. Part of me felt like we were just gonna ignore those movies and just never be talked about again, mainly because a lot of the Alien fan base was so divided on those movies. You have some people that love Prometheus and Covenant, which I am one of them, and then there's other Alien fans who hate those movies and feel like it ruined the mythology of aliens. And so to have Alien Romulus not only bring back in and confirm them as canon, celebrating the universe, but to add a little deeper layer to it, which is finally when the movie was starting to do something new and of its own, is one, they let us know that the Weyland Corporation now has their hands on this goo, and instead of trying to weaponize it, they add a different spin on it where the Weyland Corporation is actually trying to make humans better, is trying to make them more evolved. Whether for honest, good reasons, which I doubt, or just so that they could have stronger workers on their mining planets, which is what I'm thinking they really wanted. The reason they were experimenting with this black goo is so that they could evolve humans. They could accelerate their evolution just like that goo accelerates the evolution in other people and creates the xenomorphs. And we see that through a test video where they crush a rat dead and then inject it with the goo and it fixes itself and it's all better now. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that they added in this new lore and expanded things. And that's also to me why a lot of the nostalgia didn't bother me, because this movie still did a lot of its own new unique things. Like that sequence we get where they're in a hallway full of face huggers and they decide, well, these things track you by your body heat, so if we turn up the temperature and you walk slowly, you might be able to be invisible to them. Love that. Great suspenseful moment, and it was a new spin on an old trope in the Alien universe. The zero gravity sequence we get later on, oh my God, that was glorious. I thought that was so much fun the way they implemented that. They can't shoot these xenomorphs because their acid blood would drop down and implode the ship. So what do? They take off the gravity in the ship, and then she just goes crazy with that gun, killing all the xenomorphs, but then leaving a bunch of acid blood floating to you where she has to evade it all. I love that sequence. I thought it was great. So to me, there was enough new in there that I didn't just feel like I was watching the same old movie. But then that brings us to the finale of the film, where they definitely do a little new, but also go back to something that has been done before. They do the thing where they think they've escaped the alien, like in the first film, are about to get into their cryo chambers and off to safety when Isabela Merced's character of Kay injected herself with the goo because she was badly injured, and that goo has now accelerated her birth to where she lays this egg. Really horrific, crazy scene. Like, Isabela Merced didn't get all that much to do in this movie, but her scream in the film, oh, I need her in more horror movies because she's got some lungs on her. But the egg eventually opens up, and while I was expecting to see kind of like a weird xenomorph hybrid, it looks very human. It has a face that kind of looks like the engineers, but it has a tall, skinny body of the xenomorphs. Now, I will admit, I don't love the design. It is a very scary and creepy design, but it is not my favorite alien hybrid design. I thought maybe they could have done better. And yes, this also feels like a big retread of what happens in Alien Resurrection, where we do get the same thing of a human-alien hybrid that we fight at the end of the movie. I felt like Fede did enough of his own different things and bringing up the horror, because in Resurrection, you're not really scared of that alien. You're just more feeling bad for it, and in fact, you're supposed to sympathize with it. Here, you're completely creeped out by this thing. In my theater, when that thing revealed its face and the birth sequence, oh, we were all gasping. I was locked in. I was like, what? Oh my God, I'm loving this. This was the bonkers third act, but I've seen people, they don't like it. And you know, I think that's the thing with us Alien fans. The franchise has given us a wide range of different things. We are also divided on what exactly we want from this franchise. Because after the first two Alien movies, every single Alien movie after that, you are divided 50-50, either people loving it or hating it. There's some people who only want the xenomorph to be the only alien they ever see. They don't like hybrids or new looks at different aliens, when that's kind of more what I want. I want more hybrids. I think that's so fascinating. I'm waiting for the day for like a smart xenomorph. I know they already have an intelligence level, but I would like a xenomorph that is more intelligent based, that isn't as aggressive and violent, because you call this thing the perfect organism, but like it acts like a dangerous animal. It would be perfect to me if it also could do your taxes. So the finale was working for me because Fede was implementing all his horror vibes, and even more so when he like wants to go breastfeed on Isabela Merced and her boobs are like giving out this like gooey substance. Dude, that's that body erotic horror Alien is known for. I like it. But Rain eventually gets to escape along with her brother Andy, who's a little damaged, but it's pretty clear she could probably fix him in Yavarga, and she kind of sails off into the sunset. I like that. They could have easily have just killed off every single one of these characters. That way there's an explanation for why we never see them again in the alien world. But my mind of like, they made it to that planet, they're happy and free, and they let Andy stay on Yavarga, even though they said androids aren't allowed on that planet. I like that for a happy ending, and it's a good standalone movie. But I think there is potential for a sequel here, so let's talk about that now. If they decide to do a continuation to this movie, which honestly, I wouldn't mind if they don't. If the next Alien movie, they want to go back to bigger, different ideas, which I do kind of hope for, because I do kind of like when new things are added into this universe and expand on the lore, I'd be okay with that. But if they decide to keep these two characters and continue their story, there is a way. So for one, you still have that black goo on the spaceship. That's going to them to Yavarga, okay? And wherever that black goo goes, you just need it to be ingested into anybody, and there you go. You got more xenomorphs coming at you. They're not all gonna look like the one that Isabela Merced gave birth to. They could end up looking more traditional like a xenomorph, or some of the other ones that we've gotten to see in Covenant and Prometheus. So that goo is key for like ruining the perfect society that supposedly Yavarga is. The other thing is, the evil android Rook did say he's going to send the message of everything that happened here to the company. It's going to take 6 months for them to get the message, but once they do, they're going to obviously want to come to the planet and collect this goo because it's vital to them. That message got sent out. The Whaling Corporation's notified. They can probably track down where that ship is headed. The Whaling Corporation's going to be right behind her, trying to land on Yavarga to get that stuff back. And again, I think Yavarga just sounds so interesting. The fact that there's this perfect society that's about to get ruined with xenomorphs, that could make for a really fun movie. And heck, you know what? Tie that back in with Michael Fassbender. I would love to see him return as kind of like the main villain for the next movie, and we get it, fill in some holes to what he did after Covenant, really merge the universes together. That way you can satisfy some of those people that really wanted Ridley Scott to finish his trilogy, because I love you guys as much as I would really want to see that trilogy finished. I don't think it's going to happen, and Romulus is getting good reviews, and it's about to make a lot of money at the box office. That's even more reason they're not going to go back and let Ridley do his own movie. And plus, can you even just imagine the story potential with Andy versus David? David is supposed to be one of the most advanced, dangerous androids, and Andy's just kind of the bottom tier androids. Imagine that guy taking on David and beating him. Underdog story. I'd love to see it. So I don't know, guys. That's really my opinion on Alien Romulus. I had a blast with it. Those are my thoughts and theories, but I want to know from you guys. You agree with me? Disagree with me? Where do you think they should take the franchise? Anything, everything. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films, or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.